I'm going to call the meeting to order. Any changes, additions, removals to the agenda? If not, our first order of business is to approve the minutes from December 16th. I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion about the meetings? All in favor?
Right.
Aye. All right. Our second order of business is to approve the minutes from December 20th. This is a special meeting to open bids for the Energy Conservation Project. Phase 2.
Motion to approve.
I'll second the motion. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Right.
Okay. And we're going to discuss that in detail. We have it on the agenda for discussion later. Anything, any citizen comments? Carol?
So I don't know, I mentioned this to Elaine, I actually knew of it at least a month ago because I kind of was looking at it, but apparently, so the Vermont Journal is not following our select board meetings.
Okay.
So, and they have been obviously in the past.
Yeah, I've noticed.
They did, they used to.
So I talked to Shantae, and one of the things she said, because it kind of came about after we had the meeting with V-Trans.
Yep.
And the bridge discussion and the road closures, and I was like, this is really important, and it's not just a Plymouth issue. So I spoke to her on the phone, and she actually wrote up a very good article about, you know, because it's very easy for her to watch the, you know, Patrick's playback and stuff. So, I've relied on them quite a bit because they, you know, they do a very good job of you know, really going into some detail and sometimes covering things, you know, where perhaps the minutes, you know, Angela writes minutes, and she covers things that they may miss or may not think is important and vice versa. But one of the things I noticed, and this is kind of a request, is that in the minutes now, it seems like we have things that say, like, there was discussion about such and such an item. And what I would like to request is, can we include the discussion? You know, just a couple of comments, because what happens is, if you know people have been talking about something, but you don't know what they've said, or, you know, like there was, you know, particularly like the budget discussion, we got into a lot of detail on things that were important to different people. So it was basically, the minutes kind of reflected, there was a lot of questions about the budget, but not really listing what the questions were. So it's kind of a request, you know, can we include specifics? And I understand that, you know, sometimes the meetings are long and we can't get everything in, but, you know.
Did you find out why the Journal didn't stop covering us?
So I think what happened was, it might have been Paula was gone for a while, and Shantae was covering for her, and then, you know, basically what she said to me is, we have a lot of towns to cover. And I said, you know, look, I understand, but I kind of, you know, so I don't know if there is a way that somehow we can get back on their list of being followed, because, you know, they do the other select board meetings around, so. She's very open to, you know, she said if there's something of particular importance, to let her know. And she does include sometimes little clips like, you know, when we had the holiday party, that was in there, and you know, a couple other little things were in there, but the substantive things
Got it.
were missing, unfortunately.
They've cut back on space though a lot too. Their papers shrunk and they don't have
Well, a lot of times.
their
what
word
they do
counts
with
have
us
gone way
is,
down.
You know, because everybody has this select meeting typically on the same day, so we wouldn't always be followed that week. But, you know, we have a meeting on Monday, it's in the Wednesday paper. Either that or it makes it into the following week's paper. But now we're just.
Yeah, I've been looking, I look in that, since they reduced their size, we don't really make it in there anymore.
Well, you know, and she said it's really more having people to do the coverage, so, but,
So a contribution would help, huh?
What does
yeah.
it mean when we name them the paper of record for the town of Plymouth? Does that mean that we only,
Well, paper of record means that we use that paper to put all our important, all of
Warnings.
our legal notices in.
oh,
Yeah,
Should we consider a different paper if they don't have the staff to do the work, like the Vermont Journal?
well, it's really a question of coverage, I mean, who gets the, you know, because the Vermont Standard is a possibility.
Vermont Standard is what I meant, yeah.
But it's, you know, it's, I don't,
it's, the journal distributes the paper to the post office.
exactly, everybody gets it for free.
They get the standards free, too.
But it doesn't distribute to the
No.
post
And they
office.
also.
It's $3.
don't- they only
Huh?
cover
It's $3 for that.
every once in
It
a
is?
while.
Yeah,
So they're,
but the
Yeah, you gotta
Vermont
pay for that.
Standard,
Yeah, the
people have to
stamp.
subscribe.
The Mountain Times
right,
is
you have to
free.
subscribe, you have to
Okay.
go buy it
Killington
somewhere,
paper.
so.
I didn't know I paid for
I
it.
say, gotta bring it in your subscription.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
I don't know, I'd love to just beg them to do it, or ask them, I don't know.
Maybe they take on a volunteer writer.
Sorry,
Maybe they take on a volunteer writer.
I mean, there's a thought. I'm terrible.
Are you volunteering, Bruce? No. I thought you raised your hand, you were volunteering. Reporter.
Well, think about it, Carol. Think about it.
I'll talk to her. I'm a terrible writer.
Are you still looking for comments?
Sure.
Well, the next issue on your agenda is the final review and approval of the budget, which of course impacts to some extent property taxes. And along with our property taxes, we get to pay a school tax.
Yep.
And I would like to talk about that. And I
About school
didn't know
tax?
if that was something that's going to fit into your agenda or if now is the time.
I would say, why not? Let's,
Okay.
Right.
Well,
Sure.
yeah.
Governor Scott, his inaugural speech, had quite a lot to say about the ridiculousness of the way Vermont sets school tax. Every other state in the country, the state sets the amount they're going to pay for schools. And that's what you have to work with, whether it's divided up by school district, probably not evenly, but by number of students, by some convoluted system, such as we have right now. But our system doesn't take from the main pot and make it work. What happens is the schools tell us how much money they want, whether it's what they truly need or what they want, pie in the sky kind of thing, who knows really. But they tell us what we want. Then the individual towns vote on that, whether you want to allow them to do it or not. And the real issue that I have with that particular part of the whole system is that you're made to feel like you're against education, or you don't care if you put a burden on the teachers, or if you act unfairly to students. You're made to feel guilty, whether it's by people around you or just internally, that you feel that way. We shouldn't have to deal with that. Our system is not working. It's definitely broken. And it's not producing results. our students are middle of the range as far as education, as far as reading skills and math skills for any particular grade. They're not on top. They're not the worst, but it's not good. And yet, we have the best student-teacher ratio if you consider one teacher for a smaller class size as good. Statistics show that is not the case because they found that larger classes quite often produce much better results. Now, I don't know if that's induces a feeling of competition among the students and they try harder, or if because a teacher is dealing with more students, they're better prepared, they advance their classes in a better way. I don't know what the reason is, but our system is not working well at all. The amount of money spent and the results that we're getting, it's extremely disappointing. I think students should have the best education possible, but I don't think they're getting it right now. I think that there are an awful lot of individual school districts. There's an awful lot of schools that aren't full of students. Some of them are sitting dormant. And we have to maintain all these schools simply because they exist. So that goes into the budget. About 30% of the money needed comes from other taxes, but that's 60-something% coming from property taxes. And if individual towns aren't reassessed in a timely manner, our taxes could be considerably higher than they need to be. We haven't had a reassessment in quite some time in Plymouth. And I'm sure there's reasons for that, but it doesn't matter. The fact is, it hasn't happened.
I can tell you,
I personally, I think that we should take a stand against the current system. Let it be known that we're not in favor of it and we're considering opting out. It's words, but nevertheless.
We
that's
kind
how
we
I
kind of
feel
had a
about it.
decision like that back a few years ago when we had to vote for Act 46. And the town, predominantly voted in favor of it. But I mean, that was the final nail in the coffin, the school consolidation, and a lot of the,
Well, here we are.
a lot of the results of what
down
you're.
the road, and everybody's taxes have gone up a lot.
Well, I agree with you 100%. Vermont, Massachusetts, New York, they're the top, always in the top 3, top 5 for the most per pupil spending. And you look at the results in most of these cases and, you're spending $20,000, $30,000 a student and they're not producing what you think that would produce.
But
That being said.
money doesn't go to that
No,
student's
absolutely.
education.
No, it goes to the
It
overhead.
goes out to overhead, it goes out to all kinds of ancillary items.
We've
that
had,
have nothing or very little to do with classroom and the education provided.
in our particular district, they're 16%, part of the overall education budget in our district was a 16% increase in teacher healthcare. Okay, so it's not.
Those expenses, I feel that people need to have skin in the game. They have a prime healthcare package. Apparently, while I can't quote what's happened now, but in the past, they haven't even had to pay their deductibles. The district took care of that. There's no skin in the game for them on what that healthcare costs us as taxpayers. It's free to them.
agreed.
It's a great feeling of entitlement.
Could I,
From not just a teacher, but anybody working in the school system. They say, oh, well, the salary's not good, but the benefits.
You have to
The salary's not bad.
In terms of the admin, that's another coefficient you can look at. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but if you look at, our district, all throughout Vermont, that school administration now, especially after Act 46, is heavy, for the amount of students there are. For every student, there's X amount of administrative people within the education system that you could get rid of, let's use a stupid numbers, you can get rid of 3 of them for every 5 that there are and still do what you could do.
Well, Vermont has one of the highest ratios going as far as support per student, number of people involved, adults, from teachers to janitors and everything in between.
So Bruce, back to your point about the common level of appraisal that we're discussing, right? They do that because they know our property values have doubled. We are expecting a reappraisal this fall. This board put it off as long as we could, thinking that the housing market would tank and we would benefit from that. That has not happened. But I think Bridgewater just found out last year, they reassessed Bridgewater, housing values doubled. So that's what the common level of appraisal does, is it estimates how far underappraised you are. But after we appraise, I don't think we're gonna see any relief. I think we're gonna see some winners and losers, but mostly it's going,
I think we're going to be shocked.
It's a poor system.
yes,
It's a very poor system.
Agreed.
It does that to property owners. It penalizes you for any improvements you might make on your property, for anything having to do with your property. Just owning it, it penalizes you on an annual basis, and it's only getting worse.
It's,
agreed.
Gotten better.
It's unsustainable.
that's like Jay says, we pushed off the assessment, the reassessment in the hopes that, something would happen in the overall market whereby when they did reassess, property values would come down a little. Because for all rights and purposes, your average house in this town is going to double in value given where it is now, what it's assessed at now, and what it's going to be unless something happens between now and then. And that, you can argue with the listers all day about, how the coefficient applies, but at the end of the day, if your property doubles in value, you're not going to pay less taxes because the coefficient changes. It may be, it's a lower level of taxation, but.
Carol wants to add.
So if we do it in the fall, does it take like a couple, I can't remember what.
It'll be-
We've
if
done
we-
a formal one, we've done informal ones, but, so if it's done in the fall, say it's done by the end of the year,
Yeah,
it really
then,
won't impact us until fiscal
She said
27.
it's going to be it's going to be on your tax bill in February of 2026 will be when the new value will be on it. I think that's how I understood
so
it.
we're
Is
budgeting
that
for
fair?
26 now, which starts in June. This reappraisal starts in the fall of 26, so it won't be till 27
Yeah.
until the,
Right,
Yeah.
so
yeah, I always get, because it's
Yeah.
June,
That gives
July.
us a couple of years grace, you might think, but in the meantime, the school, the way they set the budgets, the way they figure out who's gonna pay what, is continually getting worse. And that is the real issue.
And that's unsolvable at our level.
Well, that's part one, but part two, right? We're between 2 resorts.
Yeah.
And property values have just risen disproportionately in all, like on the spine of Route 100, down the Green Mountains. Anything that's near a resort, these property values spiked during COVID, and it's just been a continuation of buying homes, and it's driven prices up.
I think if mine go up high enough, I'm gonna sell and move to North Carolina.
No, that's not a good place to be.
So,
It's a good idea. South Carolina's good too.
No, and I mean, right? They call these gold towns, right?
Yeah.
That's what they call
Sure.
any place near a ski resort is a gold town. And that's just how the state views us. People are leaving this area because of taxes, right? And the state doesn't care a bit about that.
you got a declining population, a declining school population, and yet the costs keep rising.
And all of this is, the other caveat that you didn't mention is that they still haven't worked out the bond deal for the new building, which is unaffordable. So that's gonna
Totally ridiculous.
push it'll push it up.
Blow it up.
It will fall down on its own accord if it's in as bad a shape as they say it is, but
You'll be the first one they'll come and look for.
I have two comments, Bruce. You realize opting out, that would be extremely difficult because we have to get the district approval to do that. That was part of the agreement. They have to agree to it. We can vote on it and opt out, but it's not gonna do any good.
You mean
if the-
46, Act 46?
Yeah, if the district doesn't allow us to opt out, and there's no incentive for them to allow us to drop out because we income into
I
the.
don't think that's the answer anyway, dropping out of the district. I think the answer.
Well, that, you mentioned opt out. That's what I thought that's what you meant.
Pardon me?
You mentioned opting out. I thought that's what you meant.
Yeah. I'm not opting out of the whole damn thing.
All right. Well, okay. If,
Civil disobedience, let the governor know we're not.
no, I'm all for making a stand, and I'm behind you 100%, Bruce, and that's fine, but maybe if we're gonna make a stand and say we want to see some major changes and opt out and do all these things, we should offer some solutions
Yeah.
on how to get there to satisfy us. And maybe one would be, let's renegotiate the teacher's contract. I know they have a contract, but why can't it be renegotiated? Let's make a stand there. Plant the seed. They'll never do it, but, I mean, it's an idea.
I don't think the teachers per se are the problem.
No, but we talked about insurance rates and all that.
No, I understand that. I'm thinking about the total bureaucracy
Yeah.
involved in the school system per student. It's extremely out of balance.
Okay,
This is out of whack with the rest of the country. How the states around us do it. They seem to manage, and that nobody is being hit with a school tax that's extra, and that's dictated by the school system telling voters what they want, how much they feel they need, and forcing you to vote on it at your annual meeting. Do we accept this or not? And it's a given. I don't know if there's any towns that say no to that, because nobody wants to be seen as anti-education, anti-kids.
There were quite a few this year. Slate
Yeah.
Valley was one, I remember.
Quite a few towns
Yeah.
didn't vote for the budget this year. They had made them go back to the table and renegotiate. And,
It's still system oriented, you know, and it's good that they did that, but it's not fixing the system. It's only gonna come back next year at a higher rate for those towns, because their school systems are gonna be operating at what they'll consider to be a loss for this coming year, and then they're gonna wanna make up for it the following year.
So I'm gonna try to go light on this, but the two houses across the road from the store, one sold, the other's for sale. You know, people like working and living in those houses, right? Those are gonna be just converted to seasonal homes. And the state does not care that people are moving out of these small communities. This is a cash cow to them. They can raise our assessments, pull in the tax dollars, they just don't care about mountain towns and the people who have lived here for generations in some cases. They don't.
Maybe Plymouth should secede.
our town kind of gets batted around because it's kind of, you know, in the shadow of Woodstock. We always get outvoted, you know, in terms of whatever, you know, it's just, there's no way the numbers, you can't count it at their numbers. So kind of what they, you know, they're the 800-pound gorilla in our district, what they say more or less goes, which, you know.
Maybe just like they weight students, you know, if you need special needs, you count more than one student, they should weight us, because we're a smaller town, our votes should count more.
It's a good idea.
Each person in Plymouth counts as three.
You get back into the discussion of whether it was better when we used to have our own school, you know, or that, you know, back the old way of Vermont when there was, you know, independent school districts with independent schools. I mean, that's kind of the way Vermont was. Small isolated valleys, no centralized control, because it did make sense. And they tried
Somebody made a
to,
suggestion to me about Coolidge, and they said, does Coolidge pay any taxes to the town of Plymouth, the property taxes? I said, no.
There's a payment in lieu of taxes, I believe.
Oh, payment in lieu of.
Yes. Yep. It's the same with all the conserved lands out there, it's called current use or UVA. So the things are taxed at a lower rate, but the state
Sure.
sends in some money to backfill, which is also expensive. And we're paying for it one way or another.
How do we determine how often and when we appraise properties? Should that be on a schedule?
I think it's generally every 5 years, is generally, I think is
What's when that coefficient, when it falls below
Yeah.
that threshold, and
They require
the
it
state,
to.
it triggers it with the state, and
So
you got X
that's
amount of
what
time.
triggers it, is when we fall below the threshold.
Yeah, and then they gave us a window of when it had to be done, and we picked the furthest out in the
Okay,
window.
So there is a process,
We have a signed contract for a reappraisal.
okay.
Yeah. We haven't had one for 2 years, but we just put it out, thinking that there was a real estate bubble and it was gonna pop.
Which would help us, values came down, property value came down, and then they reassessed, and it wouldn't be such a drastic jump that it's gonna be if it stays the way it is.
With Killington doing what it's doing, it's definitely gonna happen.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of growth, there's a lot of growth over there. A lot of new, bigger houses, a lot of land for sale, a lot of folks came from, there's a lot of people, even in my kids' class, 2 kids in a little class of 8 people. They're not, from New Jersey and somewhere else. They came up during COVID and just stayed. So, it's changed over there a lot.
Anyway,
No, it's,
that's what I had to say.
thank you. I mean, I wish there was something more we could do. I mean, we called Allison Clarkson about this. We've called Charlie Kimball. He's having a meeting this morning about taxes, and
Where do you
also
have
the
it?
listers.
Where do you have it?
I think it was over in Windsor, but I couldn't go to it. But it just seems like, it seems a little hopeless.
It would be interesting to see what they come up with, because it's the priority. Housing and education is the priority this year.
Yeah. And we do have to get a statement out. I don't know if they've published the rates yet, but if your household income is below a certain level, there's tax relief for that. And we have volunteers here to help with people. I think it was $120,000 was the,
18,000.
yeah, 118,000. So we need to I'll get that on Front Porch Forum this weekend with a blurb, and that'll help some folks. But it's pretty, I don't know how you pay taxes on some of these houses that used to be just,
You have to do, well, it changes your budget, what you can spend. Your taxes have to be paid, and you don't want them to be delinquent, because then that's really expensive.
Yep.
So you just have to change, you have to delete something from another column, so you can do that. And it becomes hard when people are on a fixed income.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, we've seen some tax bills go through here, or just in our abatement hearings and stuff, that have just been mind-blowing. Just, how does anybody?
people have to give up something to live here, is what's happening. You're having to give up something else.
North Carolina. It's looking better and better.
So that's a good segue to our budget. Do you have a copy, Rick?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, it's-
So bottom line, at the end of the day, compared to FY '25, Cherry and I went through this. I've looked through it. We've been through it. The most we've been able to reduce taxes from last year is about $12,000. Yeah.
I think in the last meeting, which I wasn't at, you were saying something about 70,000, but that's
We were hoping.
obviously changed.
Yeah, we were hoping to. I mean, that was the goal, but, we looked at some stuff. A few things were pointed out. Generally, we tend to over budget on revenue, as you know, Carol, and that we've ended up with a somewhat large general fund. Last year was the first year. I think our balance sheet, we do not have a completed audit yet, but I think we had about $100,000 loss, which is pretty remarkable considering that was the flood. So I don't think we've over budgeted this year, but, and If we have, we could have that conversation again about putting general fund surplus back in to reduce the budget next year. We could entertain that.
There's an item, I think it's under highway equipment or highway winter or summer, something or other, called retreatment. And I saw one year we actually pushed it off.
Yeah.
And what is that? Is that,
Paving.
oh. Never mind.
And, you know, I don't think that fund gets rolled over into a reserve account, so that might be something
Yeah, it does not.
that we should do. And then if it gets to a certain level, stop funding it. Put a cap on it.
Yeah.
And that's probably one of the reasons our general fund has grown. There's been a few things like that. And we do the same thing now with the bridge money. If there's bridge money left over, we put it into a bridge fund. And I don't know if we put it, but we could say, hey, this is like getting out of. We are watching reserve funds closely to make sure they don't balloon.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we have a pretty good capital spending plan for highway equipment. Rick and Larry, I believe, are working on a bridge one, so we have a better idea of what's coming at us.
Yeah, you did, you put up a nice chart at the meeting last year, which showed what we're, and spread out over the next 10 years.
We have a little update to that, so not much, but we'll share that again. And with the grader, we know we need a grader, but last year there was we just missed the grant deadline for highway equipment, for low emissions highway equipment, and we've been putting off a grader purchase, hoping that comes back out again this year so we can apply. Because the grader's $250,000, is that?
Yeah, we
right?
can buy that now, but we have the cash in our reserve fund, but we're holding off because of that potential grant. So we can wait another year if we have to. It's okay.
If there's pork out there, we're gonna get it for us.
It's worth it if we can get a grant.
Hurry up before the 20th, all the money is gonna dry up. It's cutting.
Any questions with the budget? Does anybody want to look at a copy? I guess I'll make a motion to put this budget in our annual report and present it to the public.
I would second that.
All in favor? So next order of business is to approve and sign the town meeting warning. I'll make a motion.
For the town meeting, is that what you're talking about?
Yep.
Yeah. I'll second it for you.
All in favor?
Like,
And I'll fill in these blanks after in the budget. Okay. All right. Yep. Do you need to go, Angela? Do you need to go, Angela? Discussion on the equalization study results. We were talking about earlier.
Yeah, Natasha had sent an email about that. I mean, it makes sense. The only thing we can do is reassess, change that coefficient, that's it. Which we're gonna do. It's just gonna be a little while.
Is that referring to the CLA then? And somebody did a study on it?
They do it every year. The state estimates it somehow. I've never asked the methodology because I don't. don't know if anybody knows.
It's just too complicated, like Bruce said. It's all that math. And if you gotta take 6 months to explain it, then it's not, then something's not right with it.
I'll get that.
I've read it 20 times and it still doesn't really make any
It's
sense.
almost
No,
curious.
because, Elliot's been working on this, and apparently the state is adjusting the CLA formula as of July 1, 2025. And so, for instance, ours is gonna be adjusted from like 63 to 68, which is positive.
Yeah, it came up a little bit.
Woodstock is being adjusted from 63 to 79, and so they're not being impacted at all.
Their values are bigger though, that's why.
They do what?
So their property values are way higher than ours.
So it has to do with the total grand list then, is that?
It just changed the math underlying it. There's such a big gap
So
between
we're the only ones that are getting,
what ours are assessed at versus what that market value is. Like a typical, whatever, call it 1,200 square foot house, in Plymouth is valued at like anywhere from 150 to 200 grand, but on fair market value, it's more like 400. So when we reassess, if the market continues, it stays where it's at, most folks that have an average house are gonna see this doubling, at least a doubling in the assessment. And that's why we held off, because if your house goes from being assessed at 200,000 to being assessed at 400,000, then the taxes are going up, even if the coefficient changes.
your tax rate will go down, so then you'll end up still.
Right, it will, and Michelle explains it that way too when she explains it. It will, the tax rate will go down, but you're still paying taxes not on 200, you're paying taxes on 400, so you're gonna pay more in taxes at a reduced tax rate.
You want to spend 6% on 400 or
Right.
3% on 200? Or
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're not gonna, the taxes are never gonna go down. They're gonna go up when we reassess. It's just, the coefficient will change, so it'll be like he just said, yeah. It's just the magic of math, if that makes sense.
It should have been 6% of 200,000 or 3% of 400,000, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. It's confusing as hell. Even what's his name says it in his thing he wrote for Front Porch Forums. Like that was his last sentence. It's complicated. Reach out. I'll help explain it. I think that's what, isn't Charlie doing this in these meetings he's having, trying to walk people through this? I don't know.
Is he working on the education and correction? Is that his committee?
I don't
I
know.
don't know. When he was here, he talked about, he had that first one, like right after he was here that time, he was talking about what it was some committee that wasn't necessarily related to education, it was just taxation in general.
I didn't do that well in calculus. I can't figure out the formula.
That's not my strong suit.
Okay, that brings us to the discussion of phase 2 of the energy conservation project bid. Anything on that yet, Rick?
No, bids are way over budget,
Okay.
and we're negotiating with the contractor, doing a bunch of repricing, and looking at the scope of work to try and reduce the scope so it fits the budget. And we're not gonna need a couple more weeks to get there.
You gotta be in, it's 500 grand, is that how much the grant's for?
That's what the grant is for.
And we have a little left over from
We have some left over from phase 1, and we have a possible other grant from Green Mountain that Jay set up with
40,000 bucks.
44,
Yeah.
yeah. So we have some other additional income, grant income that we're working on in addition to changing the scope and doing a bunch of rebidding.
So the one that you got from VMS, because I read that they wrote in there that they can't guarantee that their work will comply with the requirements of the, whatever it is.
Davis
Build
Bacon, and,
America, Buy America.
yeah. That's what they stated in their proposal, that's correct.
So are you going with them or you're not going with them?
We're going with them, but we have to renegotiate those terms.
So if we don't if we need to spend some money, we may have to come up with we may have to have a special meeting if we're inclined, if we want to take advantage of the $544,000.
Why?
Oh, I don't know, because we're talking about how I guess you're all right.
I
know-
don't
okay.
think we do, Jay.
Okay,
I think we're all
All
right.
right.
I mean, as long as we don't borrow any more money than we already committed to,
okay, all
you
right,
know, and doesn't affect taxes,
okay,
right?
yeah.
So are you thinking that the amount will be less than 709,000 that they proposed?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
I don't know.
great.
I don't know. I wouldn't dare say how much just today.
Yeah, no, that's okay, I understand.
It will be, yes.
I-
We don't have 709,000, even if you put in all this grant funding together, so I'm not going back to the voters looking for more money. No way. No, we're gonna reevaluate the scope, and I personally, since we got that bid and VMS is overworked and understaffed, I took it upon myself to start finding additional pricing from subcontractors. I've talked to, and I have 2 other mechanical contractors bidding this job. In probably next week, I have 2 other electrical contractors bidding the job. I priced out the concrete, the insulation, the rebar. I've just done a bunch of legwork on my own, and I'm feeding all this to VMS to package it, but I'm just doing what should have been done from day one, which they didn't have the resources to do. So we're beating the bushes for tighter numbers.
Thanks, Rick, for doing that.
Yeah, well, it's got to be done.
Is this all in the garage end of the building?
No,
The second
It's,
phase?
no, it's the heat pumps for the whole building. There's 4 heat pumps for this wing, and there's a couple in the fire department, and the highway department is a radiant heat system with heat pumps and a backup boiler. So there's multiple systems involved. There's about three separate systems, actually.
Long term, those will save us a lot of money though. and
Oh,
energy,
gosh, yeah,
right?
yeah. See, the building is ready for heat pumps. It's been roughed in, all the ductwork's in place, ventilation system's in place. We did everything except install the equipment, because we knew we were getting this $500,000 grant. And no, I won't even go there. Anyway, here we are. We're working on it.
We need to make it happen, probably.
Yeah, and we will. I'm committed to it. Yep.
Any discussion on the annual report? And Angela, you've been working on the annual report?
Yeah, it's probably 75% of the way done, just waiting for a few more reports, some information from the school, and I've got a draft out for everybody here to look at, to proofread and stuff, but should be on schedule to go to the printer
Okay.
in time.
And Sherry, thanks for all your help with the budget for that annual report.
Thanks for your guidance.
Pancake breakfast.
So, I know there's not a lot of people here, but we're doing a free pancake breakfast Saturday morning. It's sponsored by Black River Good Neighbors, so there's nothing out of the town's pocket. From 8 to 10 a.m. So come get some pancakes or French toast or something. Our select board members will be here cooking and other town staff, so. Yeah. Tell your friend,
Deliver.
bring a friend, and have something good to eat.
Pass the word. You want to see some people out here eating pancakes?
Sausages and bacon?
Yes, ma'am. Angela's on it.
Syrup, maple syrup, yeah.
How about gluten-free pancakes?
Oh. Are you coming? If you're coming, we'll make them.
Oh.
Other business?
No. Let's talk about the Scout Camp Road turnaround program.
Oh, yeah.
So, does the attorney have everything he needs to write a letter? Do you know, Jay?
Do you know, Angela? Beth is working on it. Yeah?
She submitted everything, and I know I
Okay.
think you, Jay, said you had sent some stuff
Mhm.
too.
I did. Okay.
We haven't, that I had heard, an update, we haven't had an update, not today anyway.
Well, I saw some emails from Beth just before I came here
Yeah.
that basically she didn't find anything in terms of extended right-of-ways and all that.
Okay. I see something here now, yeah. Okay.
So I don't know if it'd be of any help, but for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, there's an issue on Scout Camp Road as you're going out 100 on the right-hand part of Scout Camp Road that goes up and dead ends up in there. And
I'm sorry, Campground Road?
it's got, yes, it's got, yeah. Anyway, it's a short dead-end road. We used to go up in there, 4 houses up in there, maybe 5 or 6, I'm not sure. And there was one spot where we would turn our plow truck around and come back out at 100, so we don't have to back all the way out to 100, because it's extremely dangerous. It's right on the curve. And a new owner came in, doesn't want us to turn around there anymore. So we're trying to find a way to make it legally acceptable that we turn around in this spot. It's a safety reason. So we're working on it.
I'm going to email the attorney's office right now
Yeah.
and ask for a call tomorrow.
Yeah, let's get this moving. I mean, it's come to the point where they don't even want to go up there with a plow truck anymore.
Nah.
You can't back on Route 100 right on a turn like that. It is an accident waiting to happen. Absolutely.
Scout Camp Road, does that travel all the way through?
Yeah, it's not, what's the right name?
Campground Road,
Campground Road?
yes.
Okay.
That's where what's his name was, isn't it? Yeah.
Why did they care? Sorry,
No,
pushed the button, didn't I?
Yeah, designate that to new turn.
I won't. Sorry.
Sorry.
Can the town buy some land from that person for a turnaround?
I bet not.
I have spoken with in person
I don't know.
about that, and there's conflict, some kind of conflict that I'm not quite sure what it is, but I've called the homeowner and spoken with him, and
That's the woman that wrote that she didn't want the headlights in her.
yes.
Yeah.
Different attitudes, different people.
New neighbors.
Well, she sounds like she lives there now full time, and the people that were there had it before didn't. So
Could have been, yeah.
she
Could have
sees
been.
the headlights now.
When the truck,
House was empty before.
I sent an email and I copied you all.
yeah, wait till you get 2 feet of snow and I can't get out. Okay,
All right.
all we can do is keep trying, right?
Yep.
That's all I had.
All right. Next select board meeting, the 3rd?
Okay, we have a couple executive.
Yep. Yep, I just want to get this one in the
Yes,
open.
yes, the 3rd? All
Yep.
right, February 3rd.
So if we're doing it the 3rd, any agenda items for the next meeting? I may be on vacation that week, but I'll send you my notes or something if I go somewhere.
Okay.
Send pictures. Keep us posted.
I guess that's it. We've got an executive session. We're going to do some warrants and mail. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.